Hi, it's Chris from Poseidon here. Been spending a bit of time on the new Ozone Liteforce wing, so I thought I'd put together a review, having spent a bit of time in a variety of conditions now, to let you know what I thought about it. And I've been really impressed. For me, light wind wings isn't something that's really my bag. A lot of people don't like that big cumbersome feel. It's something which is there for people which are looking for bottom end grunt to get up and going. But that always comes at the cost of all of that canopy in your hands can feel quite heavy and quite difficult. But what you feel straight away on this Liteforce is that you've got a wing which has got stacks and stacks of bottom end pull and torque, but actually it's really nimble and it's fun and it's light in your hands to use. So what they've done is they've made it in two sizes, a 6.6 and a 7.7. And they've tried to keep the span of it so it's relatively compact, so that as you're using it, it's not dragging in the water like a lot of big wings do. So you're not having to hold it particularly high. It's still a relatively comfortable riding position. They've packed all of its extra size into its chord, so into its width here. So you've got loads more canopy around the belly here, which allows them to keep it really full all the way through to the back, which is what gives it loads and loads of bottom end power. And you really feel like this. When you start to get some motion, it creates stacks of apparent wind. It really just gets you going just with little tickles of a pump. Sometimes that extra chord can mean that the wing feels quite heavy in your hands and quite difficult, and it will either drop down, or when it goes up the wing, the back of it, the trailing edge, will grab the water. But it's still really evenly balanced, and it's got a very similar, familiar sensation to the flow wing, and it's very even between the front and the back hand. It's very comfortable. You've got a lot of room in the handles here, so you can move to get your position right. It has got a really big chord, so there is a big range of sheeting, which I guess has got pros and cons, in that you spend a lot of time with a big wing like this, and especially the Liteforce, sheeting in and sheeting out to find the right amount of power. It sits with a little bit more power pulling off the front hand, so it's a little bit more front-handed in its general flying position. In a comfortable way, it's not overly pulling hard with the front hand, but you definitely feel it's more there. And because of all the extra chord, you do have to search for the power a little bit more in your backhand. So you're playing your weight between the hands a little bit more. So when you first jump on it, first kind of jump in, you feel like it's not that powerful. Maybe there's not that much in there, but you can almost oversheet, or it feels like you're oversheeting the backhand, and it pulls this whole back end of the wing down towards the trailing edge in. It really scoops a lot more power and then gets you going. Big wings like this and the Liteforce, I'd say it's not the easiest wing to pump. There's a lot of canopy here. There's a lot of size in the wingtip. And when you are pumping it, it can drag in the water. It can be a little bit more difficult. So a bit of an adaptation of technique when you've got something this sort of size, that we're just relying on its own power, we're relying on its own apparent wind, and just using the backhand a little bit more to pump is kind of how this wing likes to be used. And big flogging motions it can maybe put you off sometimes when you're trying to get up and going, particularly if you're using a board that's a sinker. So this is more paired for somebody that wants to be using a board which is going to keep them up, keep them out of the water, so that they're able to stand nice and tall and just give little tickles with the backhand to create that motion. And as long as you're in that position, the apparent wind it creates and the speed which it accelerates is really impressive, and it feels really comfortable. You'll notice it does have quite a bit of flex. So what they're using is using a lighter weight, stiffer, higher grade Dacron style material across the whole of the strut and the leading edge. So this makes it lighter and it makes it stiffer. And you feel like it's the same material as they've got in their Flux, the SLS style material. And you feel it's light and you feel it's lively because of that. But there's only so much they can do with such a big wingtip. And if you can fault it for one thing, it's that there is quite a lot of flex in its wingtips, and that will give out. So it's not the easiest wing to get going when you're absolutely underpowered to the point there's nothing, or you're on a sinker and you're having to get going. But so long as you're on that board which is holding you up, and you can just give little tickles, it creates loads of speed, it accelerates nice and fast, and once you've got some airflow over this wing, it's got so much efficiency that you can just kind of keep going and going. After the turns, it's really easy to pull it back in, find that power again. It carries its apparent wind through the turn very, very easily. And what's very impressive with it is for such a big wing, it goes upwind very, very well. It slices into the wind absolute ease. And whereas other wings, as you pull them up into the wind of this size, might start backwinding really hard and pushing against you, this is really comfortable. And that's where this fabric comes in, I guess, and the design work they've put in is that it stays stiff at that point and it drives into the wind very, very easy. It changes angle and it goes downwind, back upwind, downwind again. Very, very easy, very, very comfortable. And it never feels like it's going to misbehave. All of that cord can sometimes put you off that as you go through a turn, and especially a jibe, that tip's going to drop down and it's going to grab. But the balanced weighting which they've got in the Liteforce means it just hangs there really, really easy. Its handles present themselves really nice. There's a lot of space to get your hands back in. And whether it's jibes or whether it's tacks, it's very easy to find its new position after a turn. Cruising around, it's really comfy. It irons out the gusts really, really nicely. It feels nice upwind and downwind. But what really impressed me as well was how well it flagged out and how well this wing would behave on its front handle. It's a relatively stiff front handle, so that gives you a lot of control from the wrist to be able to hold it level, but it doesn't feel like it needs it. And it's got that feeling quite similar to the Flow wing in that it sits really balanced and it sits really comfortable. And as you drop into a wave, you can kind of just forget about it and it will sit there behind you and you can charge upwind or downwind. You can go around the wing or you can go under the wing and it kind of doesn't fault. And obviously it's big, it's not designed for wave riding, but if that's what you're looking for and you want to, it's light wind conditions, you want to get out there and you still want to wave ride, it can do it really, really nicely. So it's a really impressive piece of kit, and generally some people might stay away from light wind wings, but I think what Ozone have done here is they've made something that's actually really fun to ride, and it's got a lot of applications for a wide range of riders, whether you're looking for power because you're learning and you're getting going, or you're a bigger guy in a light wind area, or actually if you're just looking for something to add to the quiver to get you out, but still you're a performance rider and you want to feel some performance out of your wing. This thing does it. And it's definitely kind of questioned me into actually maybe something like this in the quiver means you can skip a 5 and you can go down to a 4.5 for your performance, your flow in their range. And you're just going to gain that little bit more or a little bit more light end grunt to get you up and going. The two sizes, 6'6", 7'7", I'd say you're going to pick that off your weight and your size. 7'7" is a big wing. There's a little bit more span on it, a little bit more cord on it. If you're a short guy, that's going to be pretty hard to get pumping and getting going. So short people are probably going to go for the more 6'6". Bigger people, heavier people might stretch up to the 7'7". But I felt, unless you're going in the lightest breezes, the 6'6" was more than enough to get you going and a real joy to ride. So check it out. That's the Ozone Liteforce V1. And I'm Chris from Poseidon. Check us out, poseidon-watersports.com.